All right, good morning, good evening, good night. Another episode of the Layer 1 podcast. We have an awesome one here. I've got a big fish. I've got Mike Wagner in the house, co-founder of Star Atlas. We are going to talk everything metaverses, NFT gaming, where they're kind of taking the NFT industry when they execute on their project here, and it's going to be awesome. Star Atlas is a grand strategy game of space exploration, territorial conquest, political domination, and more. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm good, man. Flattered. Thanks so much for the kind words and just happy to be here on the show with you.
Awesome, man. Well, we're going to let some people kind of fill in here. Again, Layer 1 Podcast, we're interviewing founders, co-founders, interesting creators around the space. And we do this live and we have it play on audio in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. We'll have that there as well. So welcome in, guys. We are going to touch on first Mike's background. Mike's a bit of an OG in the 2015 space. I got it in 2017, so you got a couple of years on me. But I always like talking to an OG, man. How was your time in crypto in those early days?
It's been quite a journey, a lot of fun and a lot of fond memories actually to look back on. So yeah, traditional career was in legacy finance. So worked, got a CFA. I'm a CFA charter holder, worked in portfolio management, investment and securities analysis, and otherwise private wealth management for high net worth individuals and institutions. But discovered Bitcoin in 2013, and my inroad was really through GPU mining of script coins. Feathercoin is one that stands out to me, and so many of these are now completely dead. But got a bit of a techie background, longtime gamer. Grew up building all of my own computers and going to LAN parties. And, I think I've said this on a lot of interviews, but my group of friends in high school, we called ourselves the LANarchists. And that's how we spent virtually every weekend just lugging around our computers and setting up in someone's house and just gaming.
Which games?
Uh, a few that stand out. So Doom, Quake 2, really the whole Quake series, a lot of Half-Life. Got into Counter-Strike when it was just the mod for Half-Life in 1999.
Yep.
I grew up playing a ton of MMOs as well, like Asheron's Call and EverQuest and Ultima Online, Dark Age of Camelot, World of Warcraft, like, you name it, I pretty much played, had a hand in every one of them. And one of my favorite games, though, is actually Tribes. And I think somebody needs to come out with a remake of Tribes. And not many people even have heard of it before, but it was really cool because it was like simulated flight from a personal character. Plus, there was actual flight for ships and stuff. And it was just team-based PvP. But I had a ton of fun in that game, and the physics in the game were really unique and novel at the time. So.
Yeah, I don't know about Tribes. Counter-Strike definitely rings a bell. I remember going to the LAN parties for Counter-Strike, and also I remember, getting after it online. That was where I really cut my teeth, just getting yelled at by internet anons, But fun times, man. I'm excited to always talk to gamers, man, as it comes to their experiences in the past. And you're building a massive multiplayer online game with the blockchain integration, with the NFT integration. Just a massive project, man. We'll get to it in a second. I did have one more personal piece because I love your background there from a financial perspective, how it makes its way into DeFi as it relates to Star Atlas, man. What do you make of that migration of all those miners there in China? As you were a big miner back in the day, what did you make of that like recent news on China kind of outright banning all these miners?
It's not surprising. People will navigate to where the opportunity exists, right? And so regulation, I think, in by and large, is not going to work very well for decentralized applications and decentralized communities like the Bitcoin community or other blockchain communities. The reality is people will move towards wherever that opportunity continues to be present. And I think it's one of the actually negative components of regulation in the United States is that it's actually driving innovation away from the states, eliminating opportunities for people who want to participate in these projects. And, I'm speaking more from like the financial standpoint of making investments into projects, but the stifling of innovation is just going to, it's not going to stop the progress. It's only going to move it to another geographic location. So, I don't think it's a good move for China. I think, they had a significant stronghold on the total mining capacity. So in a way, maybe it's a positive to diversify where that mining actually exists and operates. So, but not surprising.
Awesome, man. That's a great answer. And I promise, guys, that's the last non-NFT topic that we'll bring up here on the podcast. But definitely want to get into Star Atlas. How did you find yourself in the NFT space and then making Star Atlas? And then we'll get to kind of a breakdown of the game. Do you remember the first NFT project you got into back in the day?
I do, and actually, maybe just to round out the thought on my background. So 2013 got into crypto mining, markets collapsed, Mt. Gox was insolvent, and everything was essentially bear market for 2 years. So I dedicated that time to just researching and discovering everything I could about blockchain and cryptocurrency. 2015 went full-time crypto. 2016 launched my first company in the space, so we're not new to this. It's a crypto and cannabis company that's called Toke's Platform, or Multi-Chain Ventures as the parent holding company. But one of the benefits to that is that I got introduced to some of the same team members that went on to co-found Star Atlas with me. So I was actually very critical of things like CryptoKitties back in the day. I didn't really see a lot of potential in it. And I have to be honest with you, from the pure artistic standpoint of NFTs being sold, I also didn't necessarily see the value there. I do now. I do think that there's a market for that. However, given what we're doing in the game space, utility-driven NFTs just make a lot more sense to me, right? There's, going back to financial modeling, looking at things like the intrinsic value of an asset or a security. It's much simpler to model where the value accrues based on how you drive that value. And so, using NFTs in games for true asset ownership, and also delivering this cash flow stream to the player, or residual income, which is very prominent in DeFi, all of these things drive value and utility to the underlying NFT. Now, there's certainly something to be said for collectibles, right? For pure digital art. There is a marketplace for that, but I think what we need to do going forward is expand the way that people interact with that digital art. It needs to be a shared experience. The same reason I have the art behind me on this wall is because when people come over, when I'm entertaining, it's something to look at, it's something to talk about, right? So having digital art in a wallet as pure speculative value doesn't really deliver on the underlying concept or promise of NFT art. However, when you can start to present that art in your habitat in Star Atlas or in Decentraland or in Sandbox, when you can actually put your collection on display, that's going to drive more interest in it, drive more trading in those assets, and also encourage more people to purchase this form of art.
Yeah, when people come out and say, what's the next thing for NFTs? What is it? I believe that it's the utility portion, right? And that inherently is kind of gaming assets. And that's why the NFT games are next. I think that's a vertical that's absolutely going to take off. To your point about kind of experiencing art in a metaverse setting, one of the reasons I got into Bored Ape is because I hopped into like a rare room on cyber type piece. And I was like, man, I really wish I had a Bored Ape right there so I could look at it and show it off. So I definitely get those concepts, man. You guys are building an absolutely massive project where people can get immersed into the metaverse. So let's hop in. If you unless you want to tie a bow on those thoughts there, which I think you laid out, kind of the utility piece of gaming assets and why they're going to be the next vertical. Let's hop into Star Atlas, man, and tell people what you're building.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
Hit it, man. So give us a quick overview. What is Star Atlas for those that have no idea, and then we can hop in, and it's going to be an awesome convo.
Sure. So from high level, you kind of noted these, but we're building out a massively multiplayer online game, or MMO RPG, or MMO RTS. It is centered around space exploration, territory control, political domination. We deliver on those mechanics through some of the integrations with blockchain that we use, but the general idea is conceptually similar to like an EVE Online or a Star Citizen, but you can purchase and own a spaceship, and you can navigate and discover the stars. And in the process of doing that, you're going to get into engagements or battles with other players. You'll get to take over and own land in the game. And then there's also a pretty sophisticated governance model built into the game that will truly enable the players to direct governance that exists within the Star Atlas metaverse. The way that we enhance and I should also touch on the fact that we are building this out to AAA quality standards. So that was the key differentiator for us. In assessing what was going on in the NFT space in general, more specifically in NFT gaming, was they're kind of rudimentary stylistically, as well as in the gameplay mechanics. So a lot of like turn-based games or card style games, and we wanted to build something that we would want to play. right? And something that would also be attractive to the mainstream gaming audience, of which there are 2.7 billion people around the world. And so, we opted to build on Solana because of the technical capabilities of that protocol, and to build within Unreal Engine 5, which highly, highly encourage everyone out there to go watch some of the demos of Unreal Engine 5, because what it is going to be able to deliver is cinematic quality. And it will be rendered in real time. So as you're playing, it will appear as though, by all rights, that you actually exist within that space. And it looks almost like, looking at another person, photorealistic. There's a lot of other features that they're, building out and releasing with Unreal Engine 5 that are going to make our game development process much faster, more streamlined. It will allow us to deliver a higher quality experience without necessarily having all of the same PC requirements. You won't necessarily need the highest end PC, although I am building one right now that's absolutely insane. But you should be able to.
Specs.
Yeah, I don't want to reveal too much right now, but it's gonna be cool. But yeah, and so we take that experience and we enhance it with all of the financial mechanisms available through blockchain. So again, NFTs, what does that do? It means that the player can actually truly possess the assets that they're either earning or owning within the game. And further, those game assets are not restricted to the game environment itself. So this is different from the traditional gaming model, where there's inherent restrictions in place so that players can't sell their assets. They can't earn gold and sell it, outside of the game to someone else. And the game developers intentionally prohibit that behavior. And we're tearing that wall down and saying we want to actively promote that type of behavior. So it allows the player to actually capture and monetize time that they're spending in the game.
There's so many different ways we can take this conversation, because we're lining up right next to traditional gaming and say, hey, look what we can do with all just having actual ownership of the assets. As someone who's spent thousands of hours playing games and has nothing to show for it other than in my experiences, which are great, don't get me wrong, but it would be awesome to spend $2,000 in League of Legends and not have Riot Games own all the assets and then just ban my account because I'm toxic and I don't have any assets there. But tell me, why is this important for the gamer, other than the reasons I kind of put out? For traditional gamers, for my buddies who are going to definitely be watching this afterwards, why is the NFT space going to be revolutionary for gaming?
Yeah, one, it is just this almost a form of sharing in the value that's created in the game and not restricting that to the developer themselves, right? So we're essentially transforming the model by saying that we actually want the players to be able to earn and possess value, as opposed to us holding all of that value in a central organization. So we can get a little bit into how our cryptocurrencies work and how our governance token and the decentralized autonomous organization, the DAO behind it all works. But it also drastically changes the model from being expense oriented to being ownership oriented, right? So I guess the analogy I would draw is, you're either renting a house or you own a house. Now, if you're renting, it's just a monthly ongoing expense. You get nothing out of it. You get the place to live. And that's kind of how traditional games operate. You can purchase assets. You can use them in the game. You get the entertainment value out of it while you're actually playing. But as soon as you leave, right, as soon as you give up that game and move on to the next thing, which would be the same as like moving out of a rental property, it was all just money that was spent for living requirements, right? But if you own the house, you're actually making an investment into an asset that can appreciate in value over time, that you build up equity in over time. And at some point when you move from that house, you get to sell it, and you get to capture all of the upside, plus your initial investment into the property. Now, obviously there's some volatility in housing market, but by and large, value accrues when you have true ownership of assets. And so that's what we want to deliver to players, is that true ability to own assets. The second components of it are, the governance model with our Polis token and the transactional currency with our Atlas token, which is effectively the in-game gold. As you earn these assets within the game for gameplay, those also transcend the game universe because they're crypto native assets. They trade on blockchain. So go to the decentralized exchange or go to a centralized exchange and liquidate those into say your national domestic currency, or convert it into Ethereum, convert it into Bitcoin, whatever you want, convert it into Solana. I should throw that in there. But you can actually monetize your time, right? And once again, restrictions are typically in place from game development studios to prevent players from doing things like gold farming and selling those on an eBay or some other site. We encourage the behavior. If somebody wants to spend their time grinding in Star Atlas and earning Atlas currency and sell that to other players, that's a job. We actually just employed that person. We just gave that person an opportunity to live a lifestyle that they might not otherwise have. So that's very empowering for the player. And then the final piece of it is really the DeFi integration. And so the value that we're providing players through that model is the ability to generate residual income or passive income on assets that are otherwise undeployed. So, by way of example, say you're earning Atlas or Polis or even ship assets in the game through some of our gameplay mechanics, you have the option to put those into liquidity pools and do liquidity mining, right? You could earn passive income there. You can convert it into something like UST on the Terra network, stake your UST and earn stable ROI of 20% per year. So, we're essentially providing opportunities that exist within the crypto space. We're educating players on how to use those and giving them far better opportunities than even just converting it to cash and putting it in the bank. Your bank's going to pay you nothing on money, right? 0.01% versus 20% through a platform like Anchor on Terra. And those are the types of things that we want to integrate into the game so that we provide our players with all of this utility and all of this reason to be active in our ecosystem. And also it's very beneficial for them. It's very much a synergistic win-win-win scenario that we're able to create.
The sheer size that you can create with Web3 integrations, right? You can have a game and an exchange and a community base and a social media. All of these things can be wrapped into one ecosystem. And it seems like you guys are trying to attack it from a lot of different angles. You mentioned the DeFi aspect, all of these things. What we're really moving into and what you're getting to is we're moving into that play to earn economy. I don't know if you like that concept. I've talked with some people that say it's, I want to use a different term, but really I've with the rise of Axie Infinity and a couple others, we've seen play to earn like come to the forefront, and people can make a living playing video games and getting into the metaverse. I want to play devil's advocate here, and there's definitely a comment that I want to touch on in the chat. Governator saying, I quit vanilla WoW when farmers ruin the in-game economy. I'm curious how they will develop the economic system to keep things fair for everyone. I think it's an important concept as we build out the play to earn model going forward, and it's super great. It's a brand new concept that has been developed with the blockchain. How do we tweak things to make sure that it doesn't go poorly, right? That the in-game economy doesn't suffer because people are just, I don't know. It's all these different questions because it's in brand new space. How do you guys plan on making sure that the economy's fair and just develop the in-game play to earn model?
Yeah, well, two things. One, we have a tokenomic white paper as well as our game economic white paper coming out. Shooting for real soon here, but just say within the next 2 weeks, so you'll understand better what the gameplay mechanics are, how you can derive revenue from that, and what the underlying economic model of each one of the tokens is and how value accrues to those. So that will answer a lot of questions. I do think that this is a valid question, but the second part of this is the real differentiation is that there is unlimited supply in traditional games and traditional MMOs. We operate under a model of finite supply that only gets distributed at a fixed rate over time based on our inflation curve, right? And so even if a player is grinding, they're not out there creating infinite inflation in the currency because it's still only going to be released on a specific schedule. So this is the problem that plagues most MMOs, is the concept of hyperinflation. Because every time somebody goes out and kills a mob, a monster, they get a sword, right? Or they get some asset. And same thing with gold mining is if you enable that type of behavior in a traditional game, then sure, all of these assets are just going to inflate exponentially over time as you grow the user base. So what we're doing with our economic modeling is restricting that indirectly through the inflation curve itself. And so the rate at which people can earn these assets over time is relatively fixed. Subject to some governance proposal system through the DAO, which can alter those economics over time, for which the players will actually have the ability and voting rights to contribute to, right? So that's kind of the simple answer. Again, it will be more complex in the white papers that are coming out, but It's just the concept of finite supply, limited supply versus infinite supply.
Yeah, you mentioned that inflation and infinite supply as being a problem in traditional MMO games. I'm sure back in 1999 you didn't know that you were going to be creating an MMO game yourself. What are some other problems that you've seen since your time as a gamer up to now that you've seen with MMO games in general, like a World of Warcraft or like other MMOs that you want to improve upon, other than that putting that fixed supply in?
That's kind of a tough question. I guess I would say end game materials is probably, because at some point these games do get a little monotonous. The game developers can only create so much content, and release that periodically depending on what the revenue looks like and how staffed up they are and whatever future game they're planning on developing out. And so where do they commit their resources? And so you kind of lose some of the appeal of and attraction to the game over time because of end game content. What's really cool about Star Atlas, though, and I've talked about this in the past, is that it can have virtually an infinite lifetime if we do this right. If we set a strong foundation, this is not just a game that we'll be building for 7 or 8 years. It's actually a game that can constantly evolve over time and can include inputs from content creators all around the world. And just to kind of elaborate on that, we are operating very much in a centralized fashion initially because we have the vision for the product and we know what it takes to get it delivered to the market. So we are going to create that product, we're going to deliver, and then slowly over time, through the distribution and earning of Polis, the governance token, the community at large will actually have the ability to direct development going into the future. And that might mean that we at Star Atlas, our central corporation, loses the exclusive contract on creating ships and assets and buildings and models that go into the game. The community could actually vote us out and vote somebody else in. And I would anticipate that there are going to be game development studios all over the world that are submitting proposals to the DAO to become a creator of assets that can be sold in Star Atlas. And then beyond that, it's really this potential for within our game, we have various career paths and professions that people can elect. But I also think that the metaverse itself is very much about this social interaction and social experience, right? So we fully expect people to come into the game just to hang out because it's a beautiful landscape and a beautiful environment, whether they own any land or ships or assets at all. They might just come to interact in virtual reality within the metaverse, right? And so that creates so many different opportunities for businesses. I could see a world where, say, Nike sets up shop in the metaverse and they're selling digital apparel, but they're also selling physically deliverable goods as the marketplace. This will completely disrupt e-commerce. Yeah. No longer will you go to a website and look at things in two-dimensional space. You'll actually be able to interact with it in a 3D space. And if you want to order that pair of shoes, they can even run the bonus that if you buy the shoes in real life, have them delivered to your house, you'll also get the digital Nikes that you can equip on your character. Right. So, I mean, so many different businesses can be created through this like sandbox environment that we're creating, where it becomes less important about what the game developer actually creates for gameplay mechanics and more about what do other people do and what ideas and what opportunities do we present to industrious entrepreneurs.
Yeah. How do you make that fertile environment for people to just come in and say, hey, I want to build something here and it grow into something massive? I get goosebumps thinking about the metaverse, man, and all of the different interoperable things that you can do within one ecosystem. I mean, you just mentioned Nike selling to a person that's just in the metaverse there, and maybe they fly off to their own planet and have something go on from a social perspective. It just blows your mind, all of the stuff that can happen.
I mean, fully expect like concerts to take place. We could replace Zoom. You could take your meetings in VR in space, and you could, what's really cool is you could be sitting on a space station in your meeting room, which you actually, a company rents out from, say, us or from the DAO. They rent this space from the DAO, and there are real players flying around in ships through the glass enclosure, and you're like seeing all of this real activity taking place outside from other players, but you're taking your meeting in somewhere that isn't just, a Zoom conference call, right?
Yeah. We're really making our way to what Star Atlas will be in like 5 years, maybe 3 to 5 years, 10-year timeframes. I know you talked about having this like long-term vision for the product, which I definitely agree with. I want to make it to gameplay as it is going to exist right out the box when
Mhm.
you guys launch relatively soon. But one last question here. You really mentioned utility, right? Like you talked about not getting into CryptoKitties. I don't know if you own any, profile picture products that are coming out now with Bored Ape and all these avatar pieces. And you touched on why these are kind of popular now, and the reason why gaming in utility NFTs don't exist because it requires almost a game to be created, which is tough. It's way easier creating 10,000 images than it is creating a AAA game with Unreal Engine, which is what you guys are trying to attack. Do you see yourself having any competitors within the space, within the metaverse space now? There's no real one that's attacking you from an Unreal Engine perspective, or do you see yourself kind of seeing competitors down the road with bigger, more established traditional gaming companies?
I think we're in a very strong position. Because if you think about the dichotomy of traditional game developers, no experience in crypto, plus legal regulatory risk that all needs to be assessed, especially once you're this behemoth of a machine moving forward, it's typically slows down decision making. So while the current AAA studios would be capable of building this game, it's going to be very difficult for them to, I think, comprehend and incorporate blockchain into their traditional model, because it also completely disrupts the revenue model, the revenue streams. And we have thought a lot about how we are able to derive revenue and reinvest that revenue back into the actual development process. So I think that's going to be a drastic change for them. On the crypto side of things, again, we're looking at a lot of rudimentary games, and that's not to disparage them at all. It's just not what we wanted to build, right? We didn't necessarily want the animated, stylized, simple game mechanics. We wanted something more complex that could really attract people for a long time, get them fully immersed into the experience. There are some other projects that are looking to build to AAA quality standards. I think Alluvium is saying they're building to AAA. They're not a competitor in terms of game theme, but I also do think that the niche of professionals that understand crypto and understand blockchain as well as we do, with the expertise that we have, that also have game development experience, is extremely small. And so I think we have a good runway ahead of us of 2 to 3 years before we start seeing competition from AAA studios trying to figure this whole thing out, as well as anybody that has the comprehension and capability from the crypto space to be able to build.
Yeah, whenever you see this displacement in even a traditional, I'll take Uber as an example. Whenever we see some type of tech displace some like entrenched entity, like for example taxis, it just requires those people to start, losing money, and then they'll kind of say, "Fuck, we got to do this," So it seems similar.
It is. I think it's a great analogy, and we do get solicitations from other game studios that are asking us about what we're doing, and I'm kind of happy to take those calls and inform them of our approach. Obviously, we're not revealing all of the secret sauce beneath it, but it's certainly not prevalent across AAA gaming. And also, once again, a lot of studios moved into the kind of pay to win model. Where with microtransactions built into the game, so you can kind of improve your character through monetary commitment. But once again, that's totally different than what we're doing, because a player in Star Atlas could put $100,000 into the game, but the potential for them to extract that back out when they're done playing exists. For us, it does not for a pay to win traditional game. So it's just going to radically change the way that these studios have to do business. Plus they have to learn how crypto works. And so again, I'm pretty confident we have some time to continue building before we see any real competition.
I love the discussion that we're having, man. I appreciate your insights and kind of the ethos behind building the game. Let's talk on specific gameplay. You guys do have a mini game that's coming out relatively soon. But as far as someone that's interested, they've kind of listened to our whole conversation here, have understood why you're building and what you're doing. What are they going to get, in a week's time, or, this year? How can they get involved in Star Atlas in the short term to benefit themselves, or just want to play the game and things like this?
For sure. So as a starting point, high level, our roadmap is structured in an iterative format. And so what that means is the player won't have to wait 7 years, which is kind of the typical development life cycle of a game of this caliber. They won't have to wait 7 years to be able to play. We saw how that transpired with the launch of Cyberpunk, where the community was so eager and anxious to get in and start playing, really pushing people, and they delayed multiple times, which happens, right? Because there's a lot of variability in this, and we just delayed by a month for our intended launch. But the idea is you want to deliver the best possible product and experience to the community. Nevertheless, we're not creating the full vision and waiting until we're done to release it. We're going to release in modules. And so the way that we're doing that is, kind of our first module, if you will, was the Rebirth experience, which is now over, but that was a 14-week campaign where we sold digital multimedia posters. They were AR enhanced, and they had audio soundtracks with DJs like Blondish and Marlon from the Bassjackers, Sueko the Child, Ricky Desktop, and we had Deadmau5 on the last poster. So we partnered with some mainstream artists to create this experience that would also unveil, kind of reveal the story, background, and lore of Star Atlas. So people would start to understand and be able to, to immerse themselves into what is the timeline? How did we get here? What events transpired in the past? And, what am I stepping into? So that was kind of the idea with the Rebirth campaign, which was overwhelmingly successful, by the way. The next step is the mini game, which you just alluded to. And so we're actually developing out on 2 concurrent tracks. One track is a web-based in-browser game that will allow players to deploy and utilize their assets almost immediately. And we're targeting the end of August for the launch of that. Now, again, always subject to change, but that is our target date right now. Feeling good, pretty good about the features that will roll out by the end of August. In the other track, we have a production team that's already working in Unreal Engine. Now, that's going to be much further into the future, but we might have a showroom experience available where you can actually view your assets and even purchase assets in Unreal in 3D space as early as the end of this year. That's a very aggressive timeline, but might be able to do that. Otherwise, we're looking at some gameplay in Q3 of next year for current projections. Now, the minigame itself is going to deliver a feature set that includes ship missions, which means you can purchase a ship and you can go explore space. And if you complete these missions, then you're going to be able to earn things like Atlas or NFTs or crew members or other items of value for completing the mission. In the next phase, we roll out land development, which includes mining equipment initially. So you can place your mining rig, you can configure your drill, configure your defenses, and you can start mining and extracting ore from the planet that you are operating on. The ore can be sold directly for Atlas. So that's one way to make money off of it. Or alternatively, you can go through this process of refining it. And you increase these to input materials that can actually go into the creation of your own NFTs. And we'll have these full schematics and blueprints that people need to collect all of the underlying input materials and then be able to craft their NFT. And they could either use that NFT or they could turn around and sell that on the decentralized NFT marketplace. And then the third component is kind of closely coupled with land development, which is space stations. This is very much a crafting gameplay loop as well. You start with a base space station, but you can expand out the platforms on that station to include your own hangar bays, to include trading platforms, to include refineries for that ore, refueling stations, right? So if somebody's flying around in space, they're getting low on fuel, you're the nearest space station, they can come to you, refuel their ship, and you get a cut of that expense because you provided the facility, right?
As a gamer myself, and you just mentioned a collaboration between 2 entities or 2 players, I love PvP. So can I take over that guy that just came and tried to ask me for gas?
Yeah, you're gonna love part of the gameplay mechanics surrounding our faction system. So there's 3 different warring factions within the game that essentially represent androids, humans, and alien races. Now it'll all be mixed together. You don't have to select a race to operate within a single faction, but imagine it's essentially just 3 warring factions with one another. And then within those factions, there are also security zones. And so we want a safe space for players to enter the game. There's a risk-free zone where you can kind of learn how to play and navigate the controls. That's where everybody starts. As you get a little more adventurous, fortress. You can explore out into medium risk, where there is some form of PvP, but it's non-permanent death. So essentially you get penalized by having to repair your ship once you respawn. But we're also including a hardcore mode. And so if you go out into deep space, which is the highest risk zone, also associated with the best materials, the best minerals, the rarest assets in the game, it is permanent death. So if you get into an engagement with another player and you lose, your ship will be destroyed. It will be permanently destroyed. It will be burned off chain. The other player will have an opportunity to recapture or salvage some of the items from your ship. So they essentially win the bet, which is they get to capture some of your crew members, modules, components, and in some rare cases, they might be able to salvage your hull and then repair that. And once again, they would have the NFT. And this also introduces a lot of implications around things like financing of assets for players, where we can effectively provide loans and let people get into assets, and also insurance. And we're already working with decentralized insurance companies to be able to insure ships within the deep space zone.
I'm getting those goosebumps I talked about earlier, man. I just love all of the different components that you're trying to put together within this ecosystem and this platform. Some of the most heart-pounding moments I had as like an MMO gamer were those RuneScape wilderness moments. I don't know if you're a RuneScape player, but you could cross over a line, and then as long as you're within a level range of somebody, you could kill them and take their stuff. And
yeah,
that's a lizard brain thing, man, that like people just want to do that. They just want to attack people and take their things.
The most fun I ever had was playing Ultima Online, which was just ruthless, cutthroat gameplay. So we wanted a little bit of that in the game. And I also play Division 2, and the way they separate it out is you can run around the main map with your team and no risk, or you can go into the dark zone and you can fight other people. And the cool thing that I really like about Division 2 is I don't know if you've played that, but essentially, yeah. So in the dark zone, once you get your loot, you have to go fire off the flare and like call in the helicopter, and then you have to wait for a minute, and people are coming, right? So super exciting and thrilling gameplay, and that's we want that type of excitement to exist in the game, but it's optional, right?
Yeah, a lot of people here are super interested in Star Atlas, maybe just hearing about it for the first time. You touched on the mini game that's coming out shortly. There's going to be NFT sales. Has there been NFT sales? I know you guys did some private sales as well, been raising funds via the token. How can someone get involved in some type of public sale or NFT purchases so that they're ready for when the game comes out?
Yeah, would definitely encourage anybody out there that isn't already following us on our social media channels to join Telegram, join Twitter, and join us in Discord. The Discord community is extremely active. There's already people that are forming clans and alliances, and it's an amazing amount of coordination that's taking place just through our Discord right now. So very promising for the future of the game. The reason why I mention that is we have a couple of major announcements coming up in the week or two to follow. And so on our roadmap for August, it's pretty action packed. We're going to be activating first and foremost buy sell markets within our own portal. And so, currently people were able to go to our site and purchase NFTs from us, but they would have to go external to Serum DEX to be able to trade those with other people. We're going to be turning the markets on fully, so you can actually buy and sell various quantities and trade and speculate with other players through the marketplace. That's one thing. The tokenomics paper is coming out soon. Game economics white paper is coming out soon. We're launching our website 3.0 version, which is also amazing and really immersive, really going to suck you into the metaverse. We have a cinematic teaser trailer that will be out, and that's going to give you some indication of what the gameplay will look like when we get into Unreal in the future. We're going to kick off our token generation event, so public sale should be coming out by the end of the month. We have multiple facilities that we're going to be executing that through, and it's going to be coupled with a kind of a nice go live experience. And then the mini game by the end of the month, in association with game asset sales that will include ships, land, and the distribution of any of the bonuses that people receive through Rebirth. I think that's everything, but
Yeah.
quite a lot coming up this month. So
You're
that
you're
definitely follows.
you're doing a fantastic job, man. Absolutely fantastic job breaking down everything. I can tell that you've been on a few of these interviews before. So that integration of Solana and Serum and all these things, how is that going from a technical standpoint and kind of implementing that into the game, as well as from a community standpoint? Has Solana really are they involved in the token sale or at the private sale level, or are they giving you guys grants, or how is that going?
I think we made money too fast to be able to receive a grant. Things were just going well for us right from the start. As soon as we made the announcement. Now, full transparency, we did close a seed round capital investment from the FTX group, Alameda Research, and obviously, they're major players in the Serum Dex ecosystem. We made our announcement in January, and it just hockey stick from there, blew up. So we did raise some private capital through token sales, and the Solana ecosystem has been fantastic to us, especially for marketing and for technical support. Still very new and blossoming ecosystem, so not everything is completely refined, but no blockchain project or protocol really is at this stage. They all have their own drawbacks, and so have been really good for helping us with marketing, getting in front of their communities, and again, technical support where necessary. I think I'm actually really pleased to kind of report that our development team is going to be making open source contributions back to Serum and back to Solana in the very near future here. So we're actually going to be benefiting the processes that other developers use if they're building in the Solana ecosystem as well. But they've been fantastic, really supportive, and it's just amazing to see the growth that Solana's undergone over the past year. When we talked to them first about this concept, there's about maybe 20 projects building on Solana, and it has to be well over 300 now. And a lot of that is DeFi oriented, which is also a positive for our players, So
yeah,
very
the DeFi piece and having you have your experience there that you can bring in that aspect to the NFT game is a super underrated type of feature there. I don't think many people I'm sure there's some that do, but I don't think many people understand how important having that DeFi aspect into the NFT game is going to be playing in long term. It hasn't been done that well or that much up to this point, but things like Alluvium that you mentioned where they have that DeFi factor, it's going to bring extra features to the game and opportunities for players.
There's one other DeFi component that I didn't touch on, and that I think is probably the most promising out of anything, is the concept of lending pools, right? So you can actually, an individual or companies can own assets that would otherwise live in Star Atlas with no intent of actually playing with them, but they purchase those assets, put them into a lending pool, and now people can, it becomes much more approachable to the general audience, where they might not be able to spend $10,000 on a ship, but they can rent it out for a period of time. They can earn revenue off of that, hopefully a net profit based on the time that they're spending in the game. And then they can use those earnings over time to get themselves invested into Star Atlas and own their own assets. Now, on the other side of that equation is that could stimulate enormous demand for Star Atlas NFTs and game assets, because you can think of it as a residual income stream as an investor as well, right? It's once again kind of going back to the analogy of home ownership. This is somebody that just owns a bunch of rental properties. Mm-hmm. And it becomes very much a sharing economy, Airbnb. Just let somebody rent the ship from you for a couple of hours, right? And return it when they're done, and you get your cut and they get their cut. So I think that it's going to drive an enormous amount of purchasing of these assets just from third-party investors who just believe in the potential of earning revenue off of those.
Yeah, we had a YGG token sale, 24, 48 hours ago. They're showing that is a viable business model there, and to set it up under a DAO, it's genius and it's perfect, and shout out to the YGG team there. But anything we didn't touch on as far as Star Atlas is concerned, we're about 45 minutes in, so that's kind of where we want to be. Anything we didn't touch on as far as Star Atlas, and then I'll get to some community questions that they had specifically on gameplay.
No, I think that was comprehensive. So I'm happy with where we're at right now. Would love to hear some questions.
Awesome. Guys, get your questions in here. I'm going to cover some that have already been asked, but definitely if you have any questions for Mike and the team, definitely drop them here. The first question being, as far as trading is concerned, is there an ability to trade from across the metaverse, quote unquote, or do you have to be in like a physical location, a trading hub, to get that trading piece done?
Yeah, I mean, some of that is still being worked out, but we have this concept of faction passes, and it's essentially a passport. And owning the passports will allow you to engage in economic behavior across the faction. So, by and large, we would anticipate that most players are working within their own faction, because there will be economic benefits for the faction that's actually like winning the race, if you will. And this will be a component of the mini game. Is you'll be able to see individual player leaderboards as well as faction leaderboards, clan leaderboards, and a lot of that is going to be derived based off of how powerful the user base is within that sector. So yeah, mostly would expect people to trade intra faction, but yes, cross-border transactions can take place.
Awesome. All right, we have probably the most important question that'll be asked all week. We have Kagian here in the chat asking, why is this is all caps, by the way, why is Wagner such a party animal? Will he party like that in the game too?
I definitely will. We're going to leave that as an inside joke.
Okay, so I have Governor saying, what if I piss off all the factions? Can I go totally rogue and not be a part of a faction?
Yeah, you can be in deep space. I mean, you're technically aligned with some faction, but you can be a complete pirate out in deep space and not contribute to the overall faction economy at all.
Okay, mobile integration.
We're looking at one. I watched a buddy play Cyberpunk on Stadia on his mobile phone, and it ran faster than it does on most desktop computers. So that's not a me shilling Stadia, but I think at some point in the future, decentralized compute will be a real thing, and hopefully that's done on blockchain. And so by the time we get to the full vision of this, that becomes accessible. We might, in the near term, integrate some mobile gameplay, but just very simplistic, that allows you to kind of engage with your assets, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, harvesting stuff. Not our focus, though. Again, we're already building a web-based application, and we're building a full production game concurrently. So to add a mobile side to that is yet another complication, I would say. And so not our primary focus.
Okay, last couple questions here. Blinkjet is saying, will there be any safe and neutral zones? I think Mike answered that question. There will be safe spaces to kind of explore without feeling like you're going to get attacked. Miko is asking, how far can I go into deep space?
Yeah, the idea is that it will be a procedurally generated world, which means there are no borders.
Got it. All right, last question from me. And if you guys have any more questions, definitely we have some interested Star Atlas enthusiasts in our Discord. If you want to go directly to the source, can you drop some links so that people can get into, is it staratlas.com and a couple of those others that I'll drop now?
Yeah, cool. I think staratlas.com is the easiest. We have links to all our social media there, so it's kind of your one way into the Star Atlas ecosystem.
Awesome. Last question from me. I get a book recommendation out of every guest. It could be crypto, non-crypto. It can't be Ready Player One. I don't. I'm just giving you a hard time. What's a book recommendation here for the guests out there?
Yeah, I've got a couple that I like. So I just finished Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson, which is kind of the seminal novel on the metaverse, and it's very forward thinking. And I'm just shocked at how well he was able to describe what the future could look like from a book that was written in 1984. So Snow Crash, and then I'm also just embarking onto Cryptonomicon right now, which is also a Neil Stephenson book. But yeah, how are those?
Those are great. Snow Crash. I'm just getting into Snow Crash myself. I'm on the first couple chapters there, so I'm excited to finish it. So, boom.
Reading Snow Crash felt like I was taking hallucinogens. It just it's mind warping by the time you get to the end of the book. So, definitely must read, I think.
Can't wait to read it. I definitely won't be on any hallucinogens when I read it. If it already has that effect, I don't want to double up. So. Let's end the interview, man. This has been great. You've been awesome the entire time breaking down Star Atlas. They're building an entire metaverse, guys. It's NFT based, it's blockchain based on the Solana blockchain there. Really excited for everything you guys are doing. Thanks again, Mike, for coming on.
Thanks so much. Anytime.